Hello, students. Let us talk of sleepwalking scene in Macbeth today. Macbeth is one of the most powerful tragedies of William Shakespeare. There are many important scenes in it, but the sleepwalking scene has great impact of the mind upon the minds of readers and spectators. The sleepwalking scene has been a very curious scene for the readers. The sleepwalking is the most awful tragic scene. Lady Macbeth gets just punishment in this scene as she commits suicide after this scene. It is the game of Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance. Lady Macbeth suffers a lot, terribly and inwardly. Lady Macbeth suffers a lot because she had repressed her feelings within herself. The canker of guilt and remorse eats up all her energy and utility. The horror of the murder scene haunts her day and night. She feels a great burden on her soul. She holds herself responsible for the murder of King Duncan in her heart. She regards herself more guilty than her husband, Macbeth. This very realization consumes her from within. We get a glimpse of the real character of Lady Macbeth in this scene only. Her real nature remains concealed behind the assumed hardness, and cruelty. Stanley Wood, a famous critic, points out she, who had faced every crisis by sheer force of nerve, who had been the strength and support of her husband in all his contests, now herself breaks down in her struggle with conscience and pours out her soul in the broken words of delirium. Lady Macbeth undergoes a great mental suffering in the sleepwalking scene. She becomes restless and groans over supports on her hands. All her senses are dominated by her conscience. She says, "Here is the smell of blood still." The scene presents a deep study in psychology of her sinful mind. She will never disclose the secret of the murder of King Duncan, even for all the wealth of the world. But she becomes helpless because of her mental struggle. Her feet, hands, and lips conspire against her. Moulton is one of the most famous critics of Shakespearean tragedies, and he has analyzed Lady Macbeth's delirium. He feels that there are three main features: the mere reproduction of the horrible scenes she has passed through. Secondly, the struggle to keep her husband from betraying himself. And thirdly, the uprising of her feminine nature against the foulness of her deed. There is one more critic, A.W. Variety, the famous critic, opines for this sleepwalking scene that this this sleepwalking scene takes place because of Lady Macbeth's fear of punishment after death. She cannot forget the murder scene. She feels as if her hands were smeared with blood of King Duncan. She always smells of blood. She says, "Here is the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand." She is afraid of punishment. She says, "Hell is murky." The horrible scene of murder flashes into her mind, and she shudders terribly. All the minute details of the murder scene multiply 1,000 times and haunt her in the mind. She takes a long sigh and says, "Who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him?" We do not know whether to hate him or pity her. But sleepwalking scene is the most tragic scene in Macbeth. It throws light on the real Lady Macbeth. Christopher North, another critic, points out Lady Macbeth's night walking is the summit or the topmost peak of all tragic conception and execution in prose too, the crowning of poetry. And in this manner, we can discuss this scene further by reading more books, more comments of A.W. Variety or Christopher North and Moulton like critics. Right? Thank you very much. That's all for today.